Hi there, we're just gonna get into it in the interest of making a move on. What are we doing today? I want to thank Film Grab. I've laid out the entirety of Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, taking all the screen grabs into grids. It'll be a value study. If you don't know what that is, would recommend digging around on the blog or check out the other videos, just in the interest of not repeating myself too much. Um, why do we do values? They're kind of important for being able to see an image whenever something looks all blurry or starts being a bit incoherent in a drawing. It's usually the values, right? It's kind of like a layer that if you're not paying attention to, it's very easy to lose the overall quality, not quality, like the whole image itself just kind of merges in. I was recording for like 10 minutes with the mic muted, so I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, so what do you need to know today? Values kind of go up and down like this. It's not technically true, there's a bit more to it, but let's keep it straightforward for a second. I can explain more as we get into it. Over here on the top left, you have your color picker, values ranging usually in about 10% increments, right? I've drawn it with however many. This is 9, just because my hands are a bit shaky. It's a bit hard to control, but you're looking at grayscales. Any image. Let's just flick on this one, right? When you turn it to grayscale like this, I've got a new layer here set to saturation mode, colored in all black. This lets you see an image in black and white. There's other ways to do it, but here's what we're looking at, right? So when you look at an image, you see how this is a bit darker than, say, the face here or the hands. Those are your values, right? You can see how when you get rid of the color, the hue specifically. It's all right. When you when you just dig underneath for the grays, you can still recognize what you're looking at because of the values. This is what you're looking at. So what I've been doing for other films, as you can see, we're up to well over the hundreds at this point. Last one I stopped at was 104, but we'll be going into 65 images for Lord of the Rings specifically. This is basically an extension of everything that I've already been doing and condensing it into one long session, right? So we're gonna go quick. I'll be looking at composition, colors, not worrying about the details, a few technical notes. I've been scratching my my tablet a lot. I heard it in the last recording, so I'm gonna try not to do it. But to be honest, I think it's to do with the pen sensitivities, which I've not changed at all. So you still might hear some scratchy noises. Here's another. I've got a hotkey which lets me flip the canvas. It lets you see an image from a different perspective. I notice if I don't flip, I start skewing towards a certain direction when I draw. You know, like I'll draw a cube and it all starts leaning towards this bottom left corner. Hello? Bottom right. Functionally, I think that's everything we need. I'll walk you through the sheet setup that I flashed by earlier. So, made a template. So why have we done this? The first recording I did for a value study like this, I did notice I was wasting a lot of time hopping around, just trying to drag pictures in while doing it, right? Like every image took a few seconds, but overall, when it's a 4-hour study, you know, like who knows how much time that was? 20 minutes just mucking around with trying to get an image in place. You know, this way you can just get into it and start making marks on top of whatever, right? Like that. It'll make sense. So that was the template, and I dragged every single screenshot in. It might bother someone that it's starting at 100 and something. I did do my best to get it to start on at least a round number, right? So, originally I thought I might end up sharing this grid if it would be useful, but that's why it's laid out a bit neater than I would normally do it. We'll see. I don't know. It's kind of a very specific thing. I don't know if it's useful. That's not necessarily true. I think the act of setting up the sheet itself is also kind of part of the process, because you're already thinking about what it is you're going to be doing, and that's why you're doing it, right? I think if you just take someone's worksheet like this, I think it kind of loses some of the value. So we'll think on it. I'll think on it. In the meantime, should we get into it? I feel like I've already been talking for a few minutes without getting anywhere. Okay, so Lord of the Rings is quite complicated. Is my initial reaction, right? I look at all the images compared to all the other studies that I've done. I think there's a lot of detail. Compositionally, I think there's a lot of patterns you can recognize, but Lord of the Rings specifically is very beautiful in that sense. There's so much going on, and I don't know what we're gonna find. I'm gonna try to stay a bit zoomed out and not worry too much. I think we should just start, and then we can explain as we go. So I've got a mid-tone here, just for all of them. Got my draw hair layer, which clips onto it so I can't go out the bounds. And what I'm doing right now is I'm squinting my eyes. Right? You might be able to do that too. I'll zoom in a bit here. You will see, if you squint, how the image kind of loses the color in the same way as when you hit this grayscale saturation button. Right. That's a technical thing. I'm going to try and start with broad sweeps, right? And ideally, I'm focusing on maybe 2 or 3 values. So I've been trying to get as close as I can without worrying too much, This is kind of not dark enough. You start seeing patterns when you do this. Also realizing it's a bunch of people. I'm gonna need more than one value. I think the important thing here is it's a face. It's not the details on the face that I care about, right? I can see all the hands kind of stand out. They're more like blobs of light, right? So that's what we're considering them as. This is the intro shot, I believe, for Lord of the Rings, where they're kind of discussing the old tales of men passing down the rings or whatever. Prologue. Right, so you can see the biggest one, that's your attention point. Probably the important ring, right? Or whatever. Look, it's been a long time since I watched the film, and I was never huge, not a huge fan of it. Sorry, no, that's misleading. I really like the film. I'm just not like a mega fan to the point where I recite all the knowledge and lore and stuff. So I might be getting a few things wrong on that front. Don't worry about it. Okay, so that's a value one. I think this is the map. So what I want to do, I see a lot of nice colors. So we'll try and use this one as a color pick exercise. Right, this is what I'm trying to do. Is get as close as I can to it without without actually color picking, right? I could go in here with the tool, you can see the eyedropper, and that'll tell me exactly what it is, right? I'm trying to not do that when I'm color picking. You know, I have to work it out. It's like, oh, okay, it's maybe I'm on the wrong hue, or it's a bit harder to do while I'm talking away. Actually, that one's not too bad. But you can see it's a bit lighter, so I know what are my adjustments. How do I get it to not be so light? You know, I can go down. It's a bit better. It looks a bit still darker back there. Maybe a bit less bright. So we're now doing small incremental things because we're a bit closer. I think it still looks a bit off. It's a bit closer. So I feel like my hue's off. So maybe a bit more orange. It's not quite there. It's close though. It's close. Try to do this as much as I can, especially with digital painting. It's like you get a feel for the colors of like when you should rack up the saturation, when should you turn it down. I'm struggling so much because I'm trying to focus on talking to. I think that's close enough. Maybe. Shit. Oops, sorry. I don't know about that. We'll just move on. We'll move on because I'm spending too much time here. The other one's a bit more orangey. Like brown's an interesting thing because it's kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of different colors, right? That's not even a sentence. That was a null thought. I don't know. Brown's more of a darkish orange. Something like that. I don't know. I really need to just keep going. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? And I think on top of this, you can see all the map markings themselves. Make sure I cover all that. So a lot of this I try not to go off memory, right? I think it's important to draw what you're seeing rather than what you remember or know, right? Like I've seen this map before, right? So I know vaguely what things are. I know what a map is like, but it's kind of irrelevant, right? At the moment, I'm probably zoomed too far in. I'm a bit worried about the detail too much. I'm just looking for the shapes, you know. I'm trying to place them roughly. I'm using this flat brush to go for the overall shapes, and the placement's a bit off, I think. That's okay. Try and get it as accurately as you can, right? That's what you're looking for, is this sort of thing. I can see immediately the difference is like this has a lot more darks and other values involved. So I'm not going to worry about that. We're just going to move on. And the more you do this, the easier it gets. I think when you're getting started, you're just trying to get your eye to pay attention to it to begin with. Right, so I see majoritively this is closer to black, and that's the lightest point, which looks more like 3. Maybe it's a bit darker, I think 5. Going back to the value grid of the 0 to 8 or whatever it was. So I'm gonna check my value. I've also not been flipping, so I'll just keep a mental note of that to start doing it a bit more. So I can check my values. Draw them on top here. See, this is quite close to the cloudy thing in the background. So I know that's sitting around a 5-ish. everything else is relatively darker. So I know I can compare that from the background, which looks a bit darker from what I used, which was, I think I picked out a 7 or an 8. In reality, it's more like a 9 or a 10, I think. It's just eyeballing it. And then relatively speaking, this area looks lighter than this one, but not as light as this. So I know it's somewhere in between. It looks closer to this black. So using all that information, let's go back. Let's go back and try and replicate it. So let's repaint this black. We know it's darker than this initial color. Is that even dark enough? Maybe we just go all the way. I don't know. Okay, starting point. We know the lightest point was about a 5-ish. No, it stands out because it's surrounded by all this black. Right? Something like this. And you'll notice that when you start getting the overall shapes and the values similar, it starts looking like the image a lot more than, say, you compare it to this set of blobs, right? Or this. These are just symbols. It's meaningless, right? But I can do a bit more on here, and it'll look a bit closer to what's going on here. And you see, I also notice a bit of red, probably off the tower in the back there. So that value most likely is quite similar to this one, this triangle again. We can check that. I think it stands out, but it's also half blending in with the background a bit. So let's have a look. Yeah, I've gone way too light here. So what can we do? We can fix this. So what went wrong there? I started too light, right? I came from a top-down perspective, right? I was moving down this way. When in reality, I think it would have been easier to go up from the black. Okay, so let's repaint it real quick. We'll darken all of that. Whoa, too much. Don't have to get perfect, but we have a bit of that light still bleeding through. This is technically not a perfect value study at this point, but it's fine. It's for explanation purposes. This is kind of what I'm looking out for as I'm doing this. You know, I've also noticed I've kind of blocked out this triangle-ish shape here. This is the sort of observations I'm looking for when I'm doing this. It doesn't have to be spot on, but the more you do it, the more you notice at once, and you can address before it becomes an issue, right? I can see it, like when I draw, I also seem to zoom in, right? I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of like blow up the things that I'm looking at. I'm not sure if that's intentional or what's happening. I think I'm just so focused on it that it kind of gets naturally bigger. I don't know if I need to stop doing that or what, but I'm just noticing it's happening. I could probably adjust if I wanted to, but I just need to pay attention to it. Like that's identifying a natural tendency, right? Is picking out when you're doing something like that. It's quite hard to notice until you do it a lot. Okay, so that's good enough, right? What's my pace? Really slow. We need to go quicker. Right. Same again. Okay, that's the general idea of what's going down, right? This film is really complicated. There's a lot of figures and bodies and stuff, so I'm just gonna start simple drawing a lot of the faces. You can see the general gist of what's going on. It's like there's some light on the faces, they're all in a line, you know, like that we're still gleaning information. We don't have to finish drawing everything to get that information. I think it's also smarter to not worry too much about it, because if you go too slow, you start focusing on unimportant things. Is that right? I don't know, I need to check what I'm talking about. Right, we're just trying to get the gist of what we're looking at without worrying too much about the details. Unlike what we've been doing. So you can see this looks like the ring in the lake, right? Like Gollum picks it up. So it kind of blends into the riverbed a bit. There's a bit of shine on it. It kind of stands out to me. That's barely a ring shape, but that's okay. There's some rocky textures. I'll just quickly grab whatever's got a texture on it. It's probably not dark enough either. Just block it in the idea of what we're going for, you know. I can see it's like I've not done the angle of the ring properly, but it doesn't really matter. It matters if it starts changing the overall feeling of what you're going for, you know. But the idea is like you have a dark area submerging this thing. So if I flick it back, I can see immediately that the values I've used are way too high. Yeah, like I've done this airbrush onto this stuff, right? But it's kind of lost some of that darkness. Now that stuff is important because it does change the overall mood of what you're doing. You can see these first two shots are quite dark and grungy. So if you're not going dark enough, it changes the mood. It changes the story of what you're trying to convey, and that's not great. I'm scratching. I'm not flipping. Just paying attention to all these things, right? I'm probably not gonna flip if I can help it, because that isn't taking forever. And this one kind of has like when you do this, you don't really want to be worrying about the differences of your values too much. That you don't want to be worrying about all the transitions and the gradients and everything. The simpler you can do it, the better. I see a shadowy silhouette in the back there of a person, I think, because that's a recognizable shape, like this small blob on top of the thing. You don't need to go too deep into it to recognize that. I can see some foreground elements of the cave, maybe stalactites coming down. There's like some light in this corner. I can't really tell. I'll draw that in. It's a bit lighter than everything else. It kind of stands out. Maybe it's like reflection from wet rock or something. That's a bit off. I've drawn it to the right. That's coming from not flipping. You can see the important thing is it's a shadowed silhouette inside the darkness. And you can see the mood changes immediately, right? This now looks super bright, so if I don't even need to do this, but if you flick it on, you can see all the values are generally lighter. Painting this is gonna be such a pain. Look, this is why we want to simplify to big shapes. Is you start getting lots of detail and stuff, right? It's very easy to get lost in all of this. So we're just blocking out these natural barriers. A little bit darker. I don't want, trees and stuff are straightforward to draw, right? But to get like natural looking ones is kind of all about the shapes that you're using, I think. Like natural foliage and stuff, if you don't do enough leaves, it looks weird. If you do too many, it draws the attention and things like that. So it's just nature painting, looking at landscapes and stuff. You can practice that, just going out and observing the natural shapes of the world, I think, is where I'm at. But I've not really done that yet, so I don't have any materials for working outside at the moment, like pencil and stuff, but it's just not really ideal for it. Anyway, it's just treat it like a 2 value. There's so much going on here. the gist is like trees and whatnot. They have textures, right, that you can replicate. I think once you know what you're doing, you just kind of start um, simplifying and representing things, right? You don't have to match. You don't have to match everything that you're looking at. Eventually, you know, it's like a tree texture. I know it has lots of indents with the bark and everything, so it makes the values look more textured like this. You know, all the branches, they're more like individual strands which come off each other. You know, those are just patterns from having done other images, right? And it just compounds. It compounds as you go along. The more you do it, the more you're like, oh, okay, you can do that. You can start doing it this way. I don't actually know what's going on in this shot. It doesn't really matter, right? Functionally, what we're looking at is composition with like the natural barriers from the trees. This might be the, I don't know, like a representational shot of when we're entering the Shire or something, right? Something along those lines. Sets the scene for what we're going to be dealing with. You know, this is our introduction coming up next. Just to some characters of Frodo and Gandalf. Yeah. This is what I mean by Lord of the Rings is quite complicated, right? Like, there's so many shapes to look at. I basically chose this one because it's complicated. I'm going to do my best to... It's basically training my eye to pick out the most important parts. You know, I'm drawing the rim light here. That's around the silhouettes of the bodies. They kind of stand out, so it's probably a bit darker on the figures themselves, right? Yeah, that looks like 6 or 7, so we can hop down. You know, and you start recognizing patterns, you know. Two characters in a shot usually represents them talking. I think it'd be a bit hard pressed to have a shot like this where they're like sat next to each other and just not talking. I think it'd be a bit weird, to be honest. But it happens kind of everywhere. Kind of everywhere. I can't really tell what that value is on this thing. Is it the same? You can kind of check, right? It kind of is the same value. It's interesting he's holding it, right? I think this is a very intentional decision. I think that's... Not that I think about it, that looks like a well-intentioned choice, right? These scrolls or whatever it is they're holding kind of naturally block in the attention to this area. That's an interesting thing that I can now use going forward. You know, and that's how you kind of pick out things that you can apply into your paintings and drawings. You know, you learn these individual lessons, which individually is like, that's a really specific thing, right? It kind of it means you'd be drawing two people in a frame like this, right? It's quite useful for storyboarding or whatever, right? But you're looking for that sort of information, and now going forward, it's like, now I know. It's like, oh, if I want to keep the focus on something, I can probably do this, like, what do you call it, W shape almost. 2 barriers, right? That's the important thing. You know, all this, like, it doesn't matter about like the details on the figures or the lighting or anything. Like, you can always fix that up later, right? So now you've gleaned the information that was relevant from the picture itself, right? And the more you can do this, the faster you can do it without like being what do you call it? Too precious about it. Unintentional. Yeah, like that sort of thing is like, if you're going one picture every like 10 minutes or whatever, it's harder to make those sort of conclusions, right? It's like just get the general gist across of what you're trying to get out of that one picture, and then move on, right? Especially for the thumbnail style, you can do longer studies if you want to get into like edges and so you can zoom in here, get all the details if you want, make sure all the values are matched up. You can do that if you want. It's not a problem. It's just you want to make sure that you know why you're doing it. There's very different ways and approaches, and they're all valid, because at the moment I'm kind of focused on more like the values themselves, right? But you could easily do this and only focus on the light, right? Technically, that would be a no-time study, right? Light and dark, where instead of painting the values themselves, you're looking at anything which is in light you'd do as white, and then anything in shadow you would paint as black. Like, this is very different, but they'll look very similar, right? But that's what you're doing. You're trying to learn the light structures, not composition, right? In that situation, so it's not a problem, but you just got to pay attention to that's what you're learning about, and be intentional about it. And then you can kind of move it along, and then you just learn faster that way on that one subject area. The alternative, right? You sit down with a painting for as long as you can, do it like over the course of a week or whatever, and then really get into the nitty gritty of absolutely everything. You can do that too if you want. It's not a problem. Some people learn better with a longer study like this, right? So you can see it's kind of recognizable. It's shaky, whatever, but it gets the idea across. Yeah, I've not gone dark enough, right? So you notice how the values are askew here. It's still recognizable because the relationships between them are close enough, right? But the values themselves, like, I haven't pushed the contrast enough, so it kind of makes it a bit less interesting to look at, I think. It's like, it's kind of like a grey mess. And then what can you do after that? You start mucking around with darkening values and such. You can do that, tweaking values like that, something like that, I don't know. You can do all that once it comes to the final images, right? Because that's not what we're focusing on. You can imagine if you started doing that for absolutely there's 65 pictures here that I'm staring at. If I start worrying about being perfect with every single one, I'm not going to get anywhere with what I'm trying to learn. So we'll just keep moving along, right? It's like, yeah, I know, I'm fully aware that it looks a bit terrible, but it doesn't really matter. It really does not matter, right? Because that's not the goal. When you slow down and focus on making a full image, that's when it matters, right? Because now you can start implementing all of these individual small lessons and pull them into a bigger composition, right? What are we dealing with here? These mounds, I see big shapes, but they're also very similar values. How am I going to represent that? This is why I wanted to do this film, because there's a lot of this sort of stuff. Just trying to pick out the shapes. I think I've not talked about it, right? The composition is very useful for story beats, right? We've stepped through. We had the introduction, which was a bit dark. It's kind of the overall tone of the films are gonna be this a bit moody, it's sense of a darkness about it, it gives you the setup, right? And then we come into this bright juxtaposition. It really emphasizes how peaceful the Shire is, because it's suddenly you're just super bright. The contrast between having the low-key lighting of these pictures compared to this high-key setting, it kind of emphasizes it more. Just in these 4 shots, we've got everything we need to know about it, right? It's bright, it's a bit cheerful, we have the important characters. All of this is just setup for the rest of the film. You know, these are going to be the important characters. We can see this is the setting shot where we know they're in a carriage. We know this is them still. We have a leading line going towards the rest of Hobbiton or whatever. Anyway. Was that a bit gobbled? I don't know. It is starting to get into it. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Could do another. I don't really want to just try and replicate that. Honestly, I have no idea. Do I color pick? Do I do it as shapes? I could do it as a drawing, I guess. Let's do that. Change it up. We'll look for the big shapes on this. You see there's some text down here. I think the important thing is the dragon here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just get the idea across. You know, it's like some swoopy lines. You know, and then the mountain. This is the Lonely Mountains. What are they talking about here? It's like story, tales. Don't know. We'll just do it as a loose sketch. I think that's the most sensible thing to do. You see, I've got the placement of the Dragon 2 off. I mentioned it was. I'm also leaning to the right. it's all happening. It's all happening. This is what I mean. Is I start focusing and things start drifting. I can fix it. I think it's not super necessary, but because in this instance it does kind of change the image too much, I'm gonna just quickly fix it a little with a bit of digital magic, which is you can't do that when you're working traditionally, right? You kind of have to live with your choices. So ideally you get it right the first time, and just a bit all over the shop on that. So yeah, I'm trying to not do this. Undo spam as much as possible. I've been reserving it for when it's truly egregious, where it's just like I might as well just restart the drawing at that point because I was not focused or whatever. You know, it's not a great habit. So I try to remedy that as best as possible. You know, it comes with the territory. You know, it's like you do digital art. You have a lot of tools available to you, right? But if you rely on them too much, you start doing iffy things like that. Where it's like you do this, you redraw the line, you redraw the line, 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 redraw the line. You know, you're doing this sort of stuff. You know, and it's like if you took 5 minutes or whatever to look at it closer, and then you ghost the line. You try and get something a bit more accurate the first time, right? That's not a really horrible example. I can't get a nice angle on this. Right, it's a parallel line or whatever. Okay. Look, that's the general idea. And it's kind of hitting that medium of like trying to get it close enough without worrying too much about the details. I don't know, you gotta hit that balance. Like, when do you call it enough? You know, like, and live with the mark. Like, even if it's a bit imperfect, it's fine, right? It's a nice shot. They're just talking, looking over the party, I think. Yeah. It was Bilbo's birthday, I think, something like that happening. Let's get the light in. I'm drifting to the right. I don't have enough space. Why is that happening? Yeah, I'm definitely placing it weird, so we're just gonna live with it. Now, interesting composition, right? We know they're talking because it's two. As people, we want to look towards what people are looking at in a picture like this. They're looking down here. It's an interesting big blob of the tree in the back there. This is a massive silhouette, kind of draws the eye in. But our attention kind of goes towards the brightest thing here, which are all these tents and candles and what have you. Are they tents? Yeah, whatever. So what am I picking out? I'm looking for what's the brightest. So the brightest is actually maybe this. Rim lights on the side of his head. Sound like that? I don't know. And the next brightest is. So I've just knocked it down to 4. You can check the values after. I think it's going to be a bit off, just based on my squinting here. It's actually this stuff that I'm painting over the top of. It's not actually black. It's not a 10. Now that I'm looking at it, it's more like a 9. So when we flick on the saturation thing, whatever, it's just a bunch of dots. Anyway, it really doesn't matter. There's a ton of stuff is happening down here. So we'll flick it on. This whole area is probably gonna look lighter than what I've done here. Yeah, right. So let's see. Well, probably about an 8. I don't know. 8 and 9. 9. Yeah. So. That's the sort of thing you can look out for if you're looking for a higher value scale. I don't know what I've done here. I pick out too many values, not enough values. I think in an ideal scenario, you're looking at about 5. 5 values kind of gives you a nice mix. You know, you got your darkest value, you have a slightly lighter dark value. Oh my gosh, this is going to get confusing. You have a mid-tone, then you have a darker light value, and the lightest light value. Does that make sense? Oh my god. The lightest light. I'll talk it through. It's like the bright white around the hair of these guys, right? You know, you can plot that in. I mean, to be honest, I think it's easier to work from dark to light. So let's do that. What's the darkest dark color? Probably about 8 or 9 again. You see, it's 2 characters. What are they looking at? That's probably who they're talking to. You know, there's a lot of patterns you can start reading composition like this. I think when I first started doing these, I wasn't noticing these patterns, right? But it didn't take long to start seeing it. You know, it's quite consistent. If a director or whoever is doing the storyboarding has been intentional about it, it stands out. You know, and it's like you don't even need to watch the film to know how to read the scene, and then you can see which type of directors stand out. You know, if they start doing interesting things. I'm gonna ignore it. It's like these sort of images. It's like we know it's a person in a frame. You know, I'm not gonna worry too much about getting it absolutely correct. To do that, I've been supporting these studies with one-to-one portrait studies of doing something similar, right? But more like zoomed in, like looking for the folds, the wrinkles, the textures, and all the different values and stuff, and being a bit more methodical about it. You know, because that's the purpose of that study, is to look at the planes on the face, you know, and so you can start looking for the bigger shapes and whatever. And then a lot of all that kind of carries over into doing this as well. You know, there's a lot of overlap, I think is the important thing. is it's not wasted time, right? If you're doing this, it might seem as like how is painting a landscape or like looking at composition going to help me with doing a portrait, right? But you're practicing the skills of how do I pick out the values. You're looking at what sort of brushes am I using. It's all the little things that add up, and then that's all transferable, right? Once you've done it, it goes with you. Again, it's just a picture of Bilbo from below. The important thing here is we're looking up. We're looking up. That's the composition, right? It gives off a strange mood onto the figure, you know. This sort of worm's eye perspective is very useful for portraying like danger, I guess. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but you see, because we don't normally look at the world like this, it stands out, you know. It's something weird is happening. He's looking at the ring, right, in this scene. It's like, why shouldn't I use it, or whatever the heck. Just getting into the temptation of it, or whatever. So it stands out. Anyway, I'm not gonna paint the rest of it. You can kind of get the gist of it. Done. And we've cleaned the important thing from it, and we can move on. Right. Well, you can see whatever the heck I just drew is like whatever, right? I don't know. It didn't even look like anything. It was just some blobs. This one might be interesting to try and color pick from. It's a really weird color, so I'm gonna try. It's like a greeny blue. It's quite nice actually. It does give off a weird vibe. So where is this? Somewhere evil, maybe. Right, like that's the mood it gives off. It's like some Halls of the Dead type stuff. So the picking out the values, it still stands, right? Even when you're dealing with color. If I flick it at, you see, the value still maps out, even though we've gotten rid of the color. So with something like this, I know this white is probably quite desaturated. I called it white. This bright color is probably quite desaturated. It stands out, right, compared to everything else. It's alright, no. It could be the other way around. Because it's contrast which makes it drop out more. So maybe this is like up here somewhere. What has it, I guess? That's not so bad. Is that right? Maybe a bit too bright, but I think not too bad. Right, and then everything else is going to sit maybe on the saturated area. So we'll try and place it a bit more correct. Maybe about here. I've also not blocked out the background. I've just focus on the color pick itself. So what is that? That black is maybe about here, right? We're doing the same color pick technique from earlier. Just testing. I mean, it could just be pure black, right? Maybe it's a bit blue. I think there's a blue hue to it, so maybe I'm just not over there enough. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Something like this. It actually has a bit more tint to it. So actually it's probably sitting around the middle here. So something we can do now is, at this point, we can color pick from it and see how close that is to it. I think it'll be slightly off, like it's really hard to get it 100% exact, right? Because there's a lot of different colors and hues and whatever coming through there. Also, not the ideal. I want to work back to front, you know, big shapes down. I'm getting a bit distracted. And my throat's a bit dry, so it's kind of hard to focus. We still have a lot to get through. Alright, so let's color pick now. How close is that? Oof. Not dark enough, is what I gather, right? So dark is a naturally very, I call it a heavy hue, because it's its values. This navy color has really dark values associated with it. So if I do that, you see it's like nearly black, right? But if I spin it to a yellow, same, everything else I've left, it'll be lighter. Cause it isn't, cause it's black. But okay, let's take off here. I'm gonna lose that, right? So I happen to have chosen a value which is near identical to the midtone of what I laid down earlier. Point stance. Alright, let's swizzle this back to the navy. This is color theory stuff. Right, it's blending in. It's blending in. The value's blending in, right? Because it shares a value. But I've changed the hue now. So when I place this, it'll be darker. But I've not changed anything else. We're sitting at max saturation. Let's see. See if I color pick this yellow again, it'll just change the hue. But this doesn't go up and down, it doesn't go left and right. It's the same, right? But the value has completely changed. Hue has that sort of effect as well. Oh, there's so much. This is a really complicated one. What's the important takeaway? I see columns and shadow figures on horses. Maybe is this the Nazgul or maybe? But no, sorry if I'm getting the Lord of the Rings facts incorrect. I'm focusing a bit at the moment, so you've noticed I've just done that in like 50 strokes of the brush, which is not ideal. That's touching on line economy stuff. Like, you want to be able to capture everything ideally in like broad strokes, right? But that's something to work on over time. I don't think it's worth worrying about too much. It's really quite difficult, this one. But I do think it's basically these rectangles, these big striking columns, is the important thing. I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect. I think this is going to confuse me. So when you're doing it, stop scratching, please. Let's flip it. Is it close? It's more like a gradient, right? From this green to blue. We have some rocky textures over here. Can do that as representational things, I think. Might be easier to do it as an overlay on an airbrush, I think. Maybe. No, that's not gonna work. I mean, it'll work, but I don't know, something like this. I keep drifting. I don't have enough space on this side, on the right. I think having a bit of an airy green glow is the important thing. It doesn't. Painting with airbrush, I think it's a bad rap, because if you only use airbrush, things start looking muddy. But there's a time and a place, I think, when you're doing it. Like, if you're being intentional with it, it's fine. It's when you're not. It's quite tricky. This one is quite difficult. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of little details, and I did say I wasn't gonna worry too much about all that. I'm kind of breaking all my rules. Everything I've been talking about, right? I've just like thrown it all out the window. I think when you're presented with something that is quite challenging, slowing down, it's okay, right? You just so you learn, you do your best. This is probably the most challenging one I've done so far. Potentially. I don't know. I'm now using exclusively the airbrush, I realize. And I'm focusing on the details a lot. Why am I doing that? I don't know. Smart move would be to just move on, but for some reason I'm drawn to this picture. So I'm sticking with it. Maybe it's fun, maybe it's interesting. I like the colours on it, so I kind of want to sit with it a bit longer. You know, if I zoom out, it kind of starts looking like it a bit more, I think. Like obviously it's not as detailed, but the gist starts coming across, I think. Especially once you start introducing colours, you can recognize the key lighting and everything. Quick stretch. Oh my goodness. Colours are a bit off. Maybe it's a bit of a bluish hue coming down. How should we do that? Just another overlay layer. It's kind of like a bluish tint. Maybe I can do it as a gradient. I don't know. I've now entered the experimental phase of just trying things. Right, it's not going to be perfect. I don't know what I'm doing. We'll just try it and see what happens. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, doesn't matter. Okay, that's why we use clipping layers. So that's too green, is it? Too dark, maybe, on the other side of the gradient. Alright. Still, I think that's close enough. Just delete the rest because I did all that on a single layer. Yeah, I mean, it's close enough, I think. It's a bit of an Aurora Borealis type situation that I got going on here, but I think that's the gist across. Like, you can kind of do this forever, right? But oh no, I've clicked save and it's slowed down everything. Yeah, I mean, you can tighten up the silhouettes, you can get the colors closer, you can make the forms match better. You know, I think if I was doing this as an individual study, that's the type of thing I'd be looking at, is tightening all that up and not leaving it as this tiny thumbnail. You know, I've done this now. I found this image quite interesting, so maybe I would then sit down with it for a bigger look, right, and see if I can get it a bit more accurate. But we're gonna move on because we need to keep moving. Oh my gosh, we absolutely need to keep moving. I'm going way too slow for this. I might start blocking out the values. Oh my god. Tower of freaking. This is a recognizable city, isn't it? Too zoomed in. Whatever. I don't want to rush is the problem. You know, I think if you start rushing, it's also not great. Going too slow is not great. So you just got to hit a nice stride where you just kind of keep moving. I've spent way too long on that picture now. It's thrown me off. That's the problem. Maybe next time I'll just make a note. It's like I'll come back to this one at the end or something. You know, in the meantime, like just gotta keep going. what's the important thing is person 4 values. Lighter value in the black in the back there. Signify the mountains. It's a figured silhouette. Next, that's what you need. Right, we got the ring here. I think the ring is surrounded by a couple of blobs. Just keep moving. It's like a channel of brightness coming around it. Maybe it's not quite right. It's a ring, right? Like this high contrast. Like I know that. That's the thing. It's sorry, I'm starting to get into the flow of it, so I don't want to lose you. I think last time I started muttering. This I'm going to try not to get into that completely lost state, so I can kind of keep explaining what I'm doing. This is absolutely awful, but I can tell that it kind of gets the gist of what I'm going for. It's like that's the focus. You have surrounding borders, high contrast on the thing. That's what makes it interesting, right? The fact that these blobs they don't look finger shaped or whatever, like that's just lighting and color and everything. It's really irrelevant, right? But to someone looking at this, like it doesn't mean anything, right? It's just whatever. Same again. It's like I'm now looking at this figure cloaked in black. I've just fill bucketed that, right? I can tell it's a blurry face in the background, right? So I'm going to use a soft edged brush, blow out something. Then we have something more in focus, so I switch back to a hard edge, right? This is like Frodo offering the ring to Gandalf, maybe, something like that. I can't remember exactly. It doesn't really matter at the moment. And it's like that's where our focus goes. It's like shoving it towards our face. Okay, and do the highlights or something. Can't stress enough. It's like it really does not matter. It's like representational. I think a lot of this stuff. It's like it's really easy to get hung up on the fact that doesn't look like anything, But it's like it really does not matter. I cannot stress that enough. It really does not matter what it looks like, right? It's like because you're learning about other things while doing it, right? And breaking out of the mindset of all your pictures have to be like pretty and whatever is kind of key to learning this stuff quickly. It's like if you imagine. I spent as like longer on every single picture like the one we had earlier, and it may be longer, right? So if I'm trying to tie it up and make it look presentable, it's gonna take forever. I'm never learning anything, right? Because I've now taken like 2 hours for a simple composition shot, which could have been all the important stuff I could have gleaned in a matter of seconds. It's like if this might even be too slow, for this sort of silhouette work. It's like you get it as close as you can, right? But, like the better you can get them later, the better. What are you talking about? It's like as long as it's like recognizable figures. What's the important thing is like who's at the front, what are they taking with them. It's the positions that matter, not the fact that it's a recognizable silhouette in this situation, which ideally, yeah, you can. This is an interesting one for some reason, because these bushes are jumping out at me. They kind of remind me of people, but it's just Gandalf and Frodo. I don't know if that's alluding to the rest of the Fellowship having this sort of frame later. But this is Frodo like running up the hill to join Gandalf because he's just pissing off. It's like, oh yeah, I want to come. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Right, same again. It's the same again. It's like we know they're trees. You know, doesn't. It's not really important. The placement. You know, I can see the thing that matters is the frame. You know, it's like a natural border. The something's happening here. I don't know exactly what. Something is happening here. There's like a natural arch from the branch in the back there. Something like that. You know, that's the sort of stuff I'm looking for. And then I'm gonna move along. You know, like I could sit here for ages, like detailing the tree. It doesn't matter. Okay, same again. It's like the same composition, right? Because now you can spot the pattern, right? It's a bunch of columns, you know. And now I realized, okay, so actually the shot before it was like a lead up into this shot, you know, because the camera is now changed, but the overall composition is not too different. You know, we're still looking out into this sort of wooded thing, right? But now we know something else has changed, right? The lighting's shifted, and we know from earlier that the dark lighting is associated with the forces of evil, I guess, in the setting of the world. You know, the eerie building, the stuff in the beginning, like this is our first introduction to Saruman, I think. Right, it's a very similar silhouette structure to Gandalf, so we know it's like a wizard, powerful wizard. You know, it's all very, very intentional, all this stuff. Like, before we've even, like, talked to this person, we already get an idea of who they are. It's very clever in that perspective. Whatever. There's some figure, right? That's nothing like him. Doesn't matter. We'll move on. Oh my goodness, my throat. I need a drink. Excuse me. 1 sec. While I just observe this. It's empty. Oh no. No. Disaster. Doesn't matter. Stay focused. It's an eye. Interesting, the silhouette of this one looks like an eye. Around an eye, I've noticed. This is the big evil, right? Ooh, just splashing a bit of orange. Just I want to break up the monotony of the greys a bit. You know, it's I recognize from the colors because I've drawn other stuff. Excuse me. That it's kind of like a fire, right? This I can tell immediately. Like that's the sort of vibe it's going for. You can see from the silhouette. You see this diamondy, ovally shape. That it's also an eye. This is an iris. Cornea, what have you? Like, obviously it's an eye, but it's like this. Oh my gosh. What am I doing? This is not gonna be great, is it? Colors are off. Doesn't matter. That's what I mean by shouldn't worry too much about the details. I shouldn't introduce colors as well. I just wanted to break it up a bit. But you see, it gets like demonstrably more complicated once you start doing that. Right, and then that's how you break down an image, right? Now we're associating this evil thing with eye being watched, you know, has all sorts of other connotations. I'm losing focus on that one. I'm just going to move along. I'll leave it there. Right, and then I can come back to it later, right? Because I know from drawing other things that I want to spend a bit more time one-to-one with eyes, you know, and getting bogged down by it right now is just gonna slow me down. So we just move along. Interestingly enough, this shot of Frodo also feels like an eye. Like it's kind of half closed. I don't know what's happening here. But it looks like that's an intentional technique of moving from one shot to the next. That's how it feels. Something like that. I don't know. Ah, right. They're being watched by their pursuers, where they're hiding underneath the log branch on the side of the road. I really like this shot in particular. I always think about it. But you can see this is an example of hiding something in values, right? If I flick this back on, you can see how the figures will disappear into the darkness. Right, I stay zoomed out, you can't see them at all. It's because of values, right? Their skin tones and stuff are very, see, 8s, 9s, right? You can do that sort of thing. Hello? My program got gummed up for a second there. I have no idea what's... Well, it's like frozen. I'm gonna have to restart it. Bear with me. I can't even close the program. Hold on. Wait. Alright. Sorry about that. Let's keep it going. I really need to speed up. This is... Right, I'm just... Ooh. That's not right. Right, simple composition. There's a pattern. There's a pattern, right? Call it a circle composition with a silhouette in the middle. You know, that's the important part. Everything else doesn't matter. It's just color. It's the same again. Frodo's reaching towards the ring. We had this similar shot earlier, right? But this time it's different. He's reaching up towards the ring in an emergency situation, I think. It's all very intentional, you know. It's like the ring it stands out. It's the only jewelry that we've seen, you know, so far. It's so it stands out. It's all very intentional. Close enough. I don't know. We'll move along, you know. Is this sort of thing is... Notice the overall mood seems to have shifted at this point, right? Everything feels a bit darker. These characters who are a bit jovial earlier, now clothed in darkness a bit. It's an interesting blue that's like being supported by the orange glow on them. The important thing here is there's 4 figures. They're kind of all as a group. So, I don't know what he's looking at. Anyway, so I'm just going to keep moving. Because the details at this point is like, okay, not irrelevant, but it's like, it's not what I want to be focusing on right now. Let's simplify it. And then when we come across a picture which is like not some people standing around, we can sit down and sit with it a bit longer, right? Like what are you going to learn about the composition of this one? If you've already come across something similar, right? Where it's like, what the important takeaway is like tree, landscape looking out, you know, it's like, yeah, you can muck around with the details, it doesn't matter, you know. I think the relative importance of an image, of what you're doing with it, changes as you pick up more information. Is the thing, you know. I think there's a lot to learn. Like if it's the first image that you're looking at, like ever doing it like this, yeah, sit with it. You know, like there's a lot to glean. But then the more you do it, you start picking out things intentionally. You know, you're looking for, like, we could focus on this one and looking solely at the light. You know, there's an interesting silhouette in the back. There's like portcullises or something of him. It feels a bit, I'm not sure what's going on back there. There's like some extra figures behind him. Look like ghosts. What is that? I think it's just a window. The candelabra in front of it. That's why it looks weird. Interesting. Okay, so there's so much detail. Oh, I've literally, how did I miss that? The eye is kind of blending in with the values here. That's fine. It also stands out, right? It's the only orange thing in the vicinity, right? It's saturated orange. Interesting. Compared to all the blue, which is interesting, right? Because orange is usually associated as a warm tone, right? Quite welcoming, but in this situation, actually, it's quite unsettling because it's coming from Sauron, I guess. Something like this. This is a location shot that we're looking at, obviously. But I think it's framed as such because it's going to be important to the story at some point. I know this because I've seen the film, what happens up there, but this is an example of leading storytelling, I think. I need vocabulary for all this stuff. I don't know how to call it yet properly. But yeah, we're looking up here because they get attacked by the yeah, that's where Frodo gets attacked. They all get attacked. I'm getting bogged down. I'm getting distracted. Honestly, seriously, sorry if I get the details wrong. I do know the film, but it's quite hard to recall it and do this at the same time. I think I'm jumbling details. It's quite difficult to focus on both at the same time. Right, like what's the important thing here is it's lighter back here. Something like that. It's like a cloud texture. I don't know exactly what that is. It's the same. Oh, silhouettes on. I've just noticed. It's the same location. Right. Of course, because the silhouette is still recognizable. It's just clouded in a different time. It's very interesting that he's standing right here. Is that Aragorn? Maybe Aragorn there. And then this band of light looks interesting to me here as well. I'm not sure if it's like symbolic or representative or not. It's like overlooking something back towards this dangerous situation that's just happened. Something like that. It's very clever, I think. Shall we move on? How many more do we have? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 30 if we do about a minute each. Half an hour. Obviously a minute is not... It's not going to be a minute each. Something like that. Right, Right, I'm gonna paint over. It's quite dark. You see the associated. It's the associated colors with the evil team coming up a lot. So all this blues and stuff. Anytime this like bluish tone comes up, it feels a bit like undead. Is how it feels. These hands, I don't know what I'm looking at. I suppose it doesn't matter. Like plants, I don't know. They kind of look like hands popping up out of the ground. They're trees? What is this shot? Like looking down at a landscape? So I'm zooming in and out a lot. Important is I see three big shapes. This triangle, this big triangle on the right, and then this bounding one here. I feel like this composition makes it feel like something's coming in from the top. I'm not sure what the scene looks like exactly in the film, but I imagine it probably pans up or something comes down into these ghosts, something like that. It's pretty interesting. It's very interesting how the compositions leads one into the next. I'm gonna move on. Oof. I'm getting a bit lightheaded. Probably not. I need to look after myself a lot more when I'm drawing, I think. It's very easy to get stuck into it. What are these? Oh, White Knights of the Ghostly Throne. What? It's the old kings. Something like that. It's very ghostly, very washed out. Very interesting. It stands out as a bit otherworldly. I'm gonna lock that away next time. Like if I wanted, if I end up drawing a ghost for whatever reason, right? I can do that intentionally now. That's all it takes, is just like stumbling upon an idea, how they represented it, and it's like, look, it's not even a finished picture, right? But I can also start making connections. Like, this kind of looks like an X-ray. I feel like if I looked at some pictures of X-ray images, I would also learn how to represent ghosts better. That's how I feel. You know, so I'll be on the lookout. I'm not gonna. It's kind of a low priority, right? But I can now test that theory when it comes up. It's like, if I look at an X-ray, does it have similar vibes? Because that might be how they've created this image. Like, it looks like almost like a negative of people. Is there a way to invert it? Can I invert it somehow? Curious. Is that what that is? Hold on. Sorry, quick pause while I think. It's unusual, right? It's recognizable as people because of the silhouette, but the values are inverted, because up till now, all the living figures seem to have darker values associated with them. By having this light on a dark background, feels otherworldly. How do we use that? That might just be it. You just reverse the value structure if you want to portray something ghostly. I wonder if you can apply that to a landscape. To a prop. Is there an easy way to invert Is there an easy way to invert values? I'll have to look into it. It's quite hard to map values in reverse. I've tried to map values before in such a way, but it gets quite complicated. You can maintain the value structure, the value relationships, but just reverse it. So anything that looks light you can flip it on its head. Theoretically, then you could paint something as normal and then adjust all the layers by inverting them, by flipping the value structure. Theoretically. Is there a button to do that? Layer adjust, maybe? That sounds like a really specific thing. Maybe it's a filter or something. I'm just looking through the filter tabs up here. You might be able to see my cursor. So we've got levels, we've got brightness and contrast, we have hue, tone curve, maybe gradation map as well. Negative, positive inversion. Found it. Boom! Ah! Let's go. That, wait, okay, so that obviously looks terrible because I didn't do that properly. Did I paint anything today that's 140? Alright, so I'm looking for a picture which looks like I spent a bit more time on it, right? That otherworldly building earlier, there we go, we spent a lot of time on that one. So theoretically, you flip this now, and it gives off a completely different mood. Whoa. What did that do? Now, is that doing what I think it's doing? Let's look at it in black and white. Kind of. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it's almost like, I don't know what that is inverting. I don't know what, because it's not doing the thing I was describing earlier. It is on this one. Why is it not doing it on that one? It's the same thing. It's because the values are too similar that you can't really tell. That makes no sense. The darks are definitely going to light there, but the darks here aren't going to light. In fact, it looks kind of weird when you keep the colors on. So the colors are doing something. It's like it's inverting the colors too. Alright, let's color pick that. It's like a purple there. Is it because it's green down here? What is that doing? I can't remember where I color picked it from, like here. Why would it map from here to up here? That makes no sense. This shape kind of looks like someone's throat, like tonsils. What is that doing? It flips it in grey. It flips it in complete grayscale. But then you add the colours on top and it starts doing something funky. Why is it doing that? So I've colour picked up from the bottom left corner of the building. And then it does this. What? What is happening here? Why is it doing that when the colours are there? So I've got saturated greens here, and then it mutes it and goes blue? What? And desaturates everything else? And then why are you purple? Why are you purple? Maybe I've got too many gradients here to work it out from this picture. It's kind of too much to unpack. Do we have anything simpler? Maybe the picture of the building, the water wheel. Right, so when you invert this, things like this, it should become like a white tunnel, right? If I do this. I'm tunnel visioned. I need to get out of this tunnel. We found a new tool anyway to explore later. Just keep it moving, huh? I've wasted some time. It's not a waste. Learning something about a new tool is not a waste. It's never a waste. But it is kind of distracting because it's kind of like a bit irrelevant to what I'm doing at the moment, right? So in that sense, yeah, I kind of wasted a bit of time. So I did say I was trying to keep it moving, and then that happened. Cool. But the point stands, right? Like you never know when something like that comes up. I just realized I was like super hard focus on it, a bit distracted. But I think following that sort of curiosity, I think, is well worth it. You know, because it's interesting. It's interesting to learn about. You never know what you're gonna find. You know, and then maybe at a later date, sit down and try and work out what that tool is actually doing properly. You know, but now I've got it in my head. It's like, oh, okay, I can do that now. You know, that's something that I didn't know existed before, or I've seen it in the menus, but I didn't really understand what it was doing. Now I have a slightly better understanding of the capabilities of the programs available, right? And that's how you kind of build it up. This is a horrible shot. I think is that Riverdale? Maybe Rivendell. Whatever. Elf City, right? I don't want to draw this. It's so complicated. It's so complicated. Right, let's block out a silhouette of the buildings. Towers. That's the feeling, right, of what I'm getting at. And then we have like the waterfall coming down here. I'm still thinking about the negative positive thing. I'll be real. I think that's why I'm a bit distracted at the moment. What is this? wasn't even the city, it was the mountains. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, it kind of blends in, huh? Is that intentional too? Feels intentional. It's like the reverse of what we were dealing with the hiding scene, right? You can also hide values in the light. You know, if you want to disappear something into the snow or the fog or something, you can do this as well. Because the elves in this story are quite secluded, right? So it makes sense that they would have something like this where you kind of can't see it. Oh, it's all so intentional. There's so much stuff to tap into. Actually incredible, but keep it moving. I think that's the problem. Like you could sit and study all this for hours and still not get all of it, right? Like this stuff takes a lifetime to understand. So I don't want to spend a lifetime doing that. I need to have something functional fast, right? So we'll get the general idea down, and then we can work on the details as we go. That's the thing. I remember this shot when I was setting up the page. It really stuck out to me. You know, it's they're having a romantic moment or something, right? Which is like there's a lot to say on that topic. We're gonna blow right past it, right? It's just like suspend disbelief on that for a minute. Yeah, we needed a romance scene. Blah blah blah. Fucking excuse my language. Yeah, I remember it was interesting because it was unusual lighting when I was looking at it. You know, I would have thought the light would be on the figures themselves. Actually, it's off, right? They're not in the direct light. That's still the focal point. It's not even the lightest part in the image, right? But you can tell like that's the important thing that's happening in the scene. I have a bit of rim light on the edge here. Something like this. I also have a tree and being illuminated by the light here. Something like that. I don't know. It's not a great silhouette, but it's okay. Something along those lines, right? And it got me thinking, it's like, why is that? Why are they not in the light? I was like, oh yeah. I mean, if it's like a romantic scene, like it's kind of intentional that they're kind of like hiding away a bit. Like it feels a bit secretive to me when I look at this image. I think about it as they want a moment of privacy. Like that's how it comes across when I look at this image. I think you can be very intentional with that sort of thing. And it might not be interpreted exactly how you plan the sort of thing, right? I think it's like when you plan compositions on this sort of thing, it's introducing potential story threads. You know, people can fill in the blanks for themselves. You know, I think we have a lot of associated traits like the silhouette or like the two characters in a shot. You know, you kind of start associating with them talking, but that might not necessarily be the conclusion that everyone reaches. But generally speaking, broad strokes, you know, people will understand what you're trying to convey if you have a proper value structure. So this is the formation of the fellowship, is it? So very bright at the moment. There's just a lot of like warm hues. I'm on the wrong layer. Lots of oranges and like feels very autumnal almost to me when I look at this. We have some statues on the sides, I think. I'm scratching. Interesting formation of the characters. They're kind of also sat in a ring shape. This is all planned, huh? 2001. I was very impressed with the parasite study I did a while back. Similar things, you know. I think that was the realization of when I started noticing everything is super planned out. You can kind of hear me working out, but now coming into this study, I know for certain that every single shot has been planned with purpose. And that's kind of impressive to me. See, it has the same lighting structure as the ring too, huh? Very similar. I think this is open so we can actually see what's going on. But the overall shape is still... This is an interesting shot. I want to sit with it for a second. So the tops of the characters' heads, the skin tones and stuff, it kind of matches the reflection value structure of the ring. Don't know if that makes any sense, but you can see like this band of dark, then you got like the bright reflections on top of the ring. It's kind of like matched up with the uncovered faces. I think that's down to like costume design, right? I think you could say like, oh, all the people gathered here, they're kind of like a band of adventurers or whatever. So you could argue that they would be wearing hoods and whatnot, covering up their identities. But they're not. They're just a bunch of dwarves, isn't it? A bunch of everyone. But at first glance, it doesn't look like it, right? You're looking at a ring of people, and that's how you kind of build interest, right? Having multiple of the same thing, in this case, figures, makes it interesting. There's a lot of detail in the background and stuff, right? But the core structure of it, underneath all that, is still the same. It's very simple. It's a ring, you know. You could draw this one first, and then map out people along the way. It'd be the same. But you also look at the set design, right? You have the statues. We have lots of leaves. It's very natural, right? There's a lot of associated shapes. Associated colors is emblematic of the world. That's world building, right? You can map out related things, like the trellis. Is that what they're called? Trellis? I've called it that now. These arches They remind me of like medieval cloisters or something along those lines. Maybe like a garden, grapevine, whatever have you. Lots of leaves and whatnot. I think it's all very planned out. Where if it's an elven land, right? You have that bright overtone, a bit disguised in the values. We got the leaves and everything, and right away you know that's where we are. I think after this point, anytime we see that sort of imagery, we know it's an elfish town, and you don't have to spend all that time setting it up after this point. And I think the same thing was happening with the undead thing we were talking about, the greens and blues, um, the Sauron's eye is like that fiery texture. Everything has its associations, right? And I think when you're handling a world building exercise like that, not muddying that up is probably key to making it visually succinct, narratively succinct. I've never used that word in my life. I can always tell when I'm doing it. I start talking in that way. Like, it's like I'm being possessed. I'm thinking about how do you use that? How do you use that to your advantage, right? Would you plan out everything in advance? Yeah. Yeah, I think when you're dealing with a huge world like this, you have to, and keep it all separate out. But how do you know how to do the groupings? Well, that's down to the writing, isn't it? I think it's easier if you have a good plan in advance with words. Does that mean you have to get good at writing to be a good artist? It makes it a lot easier, and you could like share skill sets with other people. I see reflections in this band. I'm straight up not gonna draw them. I suppose some people, that's where different people's skill sets come in, right? Like, some people don't about the visual medium, like they'd rather write about it. You know, you could team up and plan this sort of thing together. I think it would make it a lot easier if you're doing like big world building. If you're building a small world by yourself, like maybe you don't have to have all these associated shapes all the time, right? I think if you're handling factions, groups, the dynamics between them, I think it starts becoming increasingly complicated. Worth doing, worth planning out, I think. How do you do that? How would you do that? It's quite complicated. I think that's why it takes so long. It's because you have so many considerations all of a sudden. I've just kind of picked that. Right, I think every single thing you could invest your time into is another area to research, right? If you want to world build by yourself, you have to understand so much of everything else, right? How, like even this, like what am I is a building, right? Are we leaving the city? I keep calling it a city. I don't know if that's what it is. It feels like a farewell shot, doesn't it? I don't want to draw this. So much detail. I don't even want to silhouette out, to be honest. I'm feeling so like just I'm a bit overwhelmed by how much detail there is on this one picture. How can I simplify it? An arch here. I'm just gonna feel for it. I don't even know if these marks will come out. I might do the lighting on the roof. Call it. I think trying to paint this right now is not happening. I'll just do shapes. What was I talking about? Yeah. Because you have to plan out stuff like this, the design of the buildings. You have to plan out how they interact with the world. What, like I mentioned, association shapes, but it's like how do you even decide that, right? I think that's looking at images and references. But you could do that endlessly, right? There's so many resources available, and how do you make it into a world that someone actually would care about interacting with, right? Like that's also another consideration. Like you could do all this for yourself, right? And no one actually cares, right? Like that's not to say it's like that you shouldn't do it, because like, at the end of the day, it's like you're doing it for yourself, for fun, right? What I mean is, if you start going off the familiar track, start doing like really out there stuff, yeah, it's really unique, right? But without any prior associations, it starts becoming a bit difficult to understand what's happening, right? You could turn all of this building work into like, I don't know, candy or something, right? Yeah, the idea is it's not like groundbreaking, super new concept or anything, right? But because it doesn't exist at all in our world, like we don't have houses made out of candy floss and whatnot. That might be fun, but without having those sort of associations to help people understand the narrative, it becomes quite difficult to follow the idea. It doesn't really feel believable, like as a thing that could happen. It's like why would you ever want to build a house out of candy floss, right? It's just gonna dissolve or whatever. And I think that's kind of fundamental stuff to think about when building something like this. It's just like, yeah, it's fantasy. It doesn't actually exist, right? But it could. Like, I think is the main thing when it comes to believability of making a world like this. Is like, it doesn't exist in the world. It doesn't in the slightest. Like we don't have like these big buildings tucked away in mountains and all sorts of fantasy species and whatnot running around. But we could. Theoretically we could, it's like that's what makes it interesting. It's like we it's possible, right? These characters feel like they could have existed, and that's kind of difficult to do, I think, because then we start stepping into like psychology of people, interactions, international relations. Like there's so many considerations that start coming into play, and it takes a long time because each of these topics is a lot in its own right. right? You could study in each of them endlessly. That's before you even get to drawing, right? But if you want to draw better designs, more believable designs, let's call it. I don't want to use the word better there. You've got to start thinking about that sort of stuff. Oh, what have I been drawing? What the heck? Kind of looks like a rock that is. Oh. Okay, so this is why you don't zoom in on the thumbnail. By the way, is you're basically drawing with a pixel brush. Look, I have a pixel brush. It's very small. It's literally individual pixels. Yeah, I think if you're gonna do a proper study of that, you should just do it on a bigger canvas. I was kind of didn't realize I was doing this. I thought I said I wasn't gonna draw it. Got lost in my train of thought, I think. Anyway, I think that's just stuff to consider. That's stuff to definitely think about when it comes to world building, design specific stuff. It's kind of like all this stuff you kind of can tell when it's not happening, but if you do it well, people aren't gonna notice like right away. It's ideal. It's like you gotta like start digging deep, you know. And I think that's what makes it like kind of fun to explore like the lore and stuff. You know, it's just like you can leave little details for people to find. You know, it's like if they're interested in it, they'll go looking for that sort of stuff. You know, and if it's like, oh, this is cool, type of things, it's like people aren't gonna miss out. You know, if they don't want to engage with it. I think that might be key to creating stuff that is kind of fun to look at in the long term and have people coming back. You know, it's like if they're interested, they're gonna look forward to looking for the sort of little tidbits that you hide and bury into the designs. But you can't really do that without first learning a lot of stuff, because it's quite hard. I think it's quite hard to do, right? So I'm talking about it as if you can just do it, right? I think there's a level of drawing confidence that comes with planning, that sort of thing. Once you are comfy with the idea of depicting whatever you want, to a moderate degree. I'm not saying it's like every art is like your super best or anything like that. It's just like once you understand your process enough to start thinking about stuff like this, it's just like it's well worth like just like brushing the surface, right? Like there's so much content. If you're interested in like textures or designs of different nations, clothing, there's foods, there's tools, there's behaviors, patterns, like how do they gather resources, how do they live in the environment, how do they survive in the weather conditions that they live in. You know, I think it all plays its part, right? You could do it endlessly. Is the thing. So yeah, having a team definitely would help. Is that the ring? Associated shape again. Why did they throw it down again? What are they doing at this point? Like going through the snowy mountains. No, you shouldn't go that way. It's dangerous. Or something to that effect, right? No, Mr. Frodo. What the hell am I talking about? I should go watch this film again. Good series, man. It's a good. It's popular for a reason, and it holds up. I think the original trilogy especially holds up very strongly. It's a very beautiful film. Can't remember how long it took to make, but if you haven't come across it before, you should look into like all the making of stuff for this film. These films, it's like super incredible. They got all these like miniatures and whatnot, wild stuff. It's probably very difficult to do, which is why people don't really do it as much anymore. It's like trying to pump out films, right? Which is a shame. It's a real big shame. I think you lose a lot of creativity when you stop focusing on this sort of stuff. I don't know. I believe we'll come to a day where people remember why creativity works. That's where innovation goes. Like it's feel a bit lost at the moment. I'll be able to do all these all together. You know, it's I've entered the mines. It's a center arch with a silhouette of a person. Yeah, this is kind of weird. I think creativity is in a weird spot, right? Like I'm coming into this late, but I get to now look at it as an onlooker coming into it. Learning to see how it's developed over the years during my life. And it's definitely been a swing. Like there's been this need to profit, this like focus on the end result, you know, instead of like generally speaking wanting to make a good or interesting thing. That's making very sweeping generalization statements. I'm well aware. It's I'm not really making a point on that, by the way. I'm just kind of voicing it out. I think it's just if you focus too much on the end result too much, I think it kind of kills the process a bit. You know, I think the end result kind of does matter. Like, but not to the point where it's like we forget why we create things. You know, you can really tell when something is just like rehashed for profit versus like an authentic retelling of, you know, it's been happening a lot to a lot of series and films that I remember watching when I was young. It's like you just slap the words like reboot or remake on it, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? You know, it's like some stuff gets the treatment after not even being out for like 5 years. I think they just remake it. Like, could we at least pretend? You know, it's like there's a difference between like retelling it like with a modern spin or like updating it, or it's just different. Like, yeah, you might be reintroducing an old idea to a new generation. Like, is that the argument? I don't know. Maybe it's not a criticism. I think it's just the systems that we're living in at the moment just aren't really friendly for the process. You know, people gotta do what they gotta do, I guess. Or do they? I don't know. I'm not turning this into a rant. Just saying stuff. I think there are there's a lot of creativity out there. That's the problem. It's just where do you look? We're being pulled in every which direction. Who do you listen to? You know, it's like everyone can do this now, which is cool. I think that's important. You know, it's the Balrog. Kind of has the same silhouette, same color scheme as Sauron. It'd be nice to get back on topic. Just kind of been ranting, rambling about this stuff. I don't know. I suppose it just kind of bumps me up when people say like, "I wish I could do that." You know, they say something like, "Oh, you're so talented," and I'm like, "No, thank you, but it's like you're not born with it. You know, you should see the stuff I was drawing. Not even that long ago, like a week ago is enough. Like, it's just stockpiling information is all. Like, it's just time. If you're interested enough, you can stick with it, and you can draw. Like, anyone can do it. Probably said it before, right? But it is very much like I'm doing this study at the moment. I don't know, to someone it probably looks really impressive. To others, it's like, what dog are you doing? Is that even a phrase? Makes no sense. Right. But it's very much like it's a very accessible thing, you know. Like, you can do whatever I'm doing here on literal paper and pen. Probably a bit more awkward to do certain things, but it's doable. You just share the knowledge into whatever medium you want to work in. Once you do it long enough, it's not hard. It just takes a long time. Seems like I want to talk about that more all of a sudden. I don't know, like drawing. I remember when I tried to draw a while ago, like years ago, I gave up because it was so difficult. I think I was too young to appreciate it, right? Maybe. And you get sucked into, it's just like you see all your friends who are drawing like incredible things. You see all these posts on the internet. And you just kind of assume it's like, why can't I do that? It's like when I put pen on paper, it's like why does it look nothing like that? So it's quite easy to get discouraged on that front, but it's just like actually if you stick with like reading about all the different subjects and stuff, you can actually get pretty decent within a few months, maybe a few weeks. If you no, let's not get carried away. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take time, right? But it's like if you draw random things all the time, it's I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think once you can get over the being discouraged over what is coming out at the other side and like disconnect like your self-worth from what you're creating, what you're doing. I think it applies to writing and music and everything as well, by the way. Like if you stop worrying about it being good, you'll just do it because it's fun. And then you will just get good naturally because you're so interested in learning more about it. You just kind of keep practicing and doing it, but it doesn't feel like you're actively doing anything. I think that was the issue when I was younger, is like I was kind of fundamentally missing information like that. Like no one ever said to me like that's what was happening. It's like to learn is to be a bit terrible for a while, but that's okay, you know. Like it's quite hard to stick with something when you have to be amazing from the get-go, you know. Like that was the sort of environment that I was kind of conditioned in, where it's just like if you're not like immediately amazing at this thing, like you're just not worth jack squat, you know. And it's just like it's so screwed up. Let's not draw the eye in. It's kind of toxic thinking about it. The placement of the eye is going to be wrong. This eye, it's more sunken in. I'm not going to fix it. This will highlight on the nose. This guy's a boss, huh? He's a 1v1 with a Balrog. And these guys make it out the cave. The mines, I think they were in, made out to the other side. It's kind of blending in. I don't know what people think when they see what I'm doing. Like, because I'm not focused on like finished products at the moment. Worrying about like posting amazing work, because it's like, yeah, I could sit for a few hours and polish something up, but there's so much to learn underneath at the moment, you know. It's gonna slow me down, so I try not to spend too much time on each individual thing. Just get the gist across and then move along. But it's not that's not what social media favors, you know. So it might look a bit unusual, you know. It's like a lot of unfinished stuff is what it looks like. But I think it's an important distinction, you know. It's like when you're trying to build an audience,
you're gonna be taking a very different mindset and approach. You know, at the moment I'm focused on actually having something to actually having the skills to be able to market it. So, but, it's like when that isn't your focus, it's like it's easy to get caught up in it. I think just don't worry about it. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what other people think about what you're doing. Like, as long as you're learning and having fun, like, I think that'll take you much further than trying to chase anything value from other people, because truthfully, the external validation, like it's going to be inconsistent. If you're waiting for other people to praise you or whatever all the time, it's going to be very difficult to do this sort of stuff, because no one's going to pat you on the back for doing some cruddy value studies, right? Like, that don't even look like anything. Like, you can, if you posted that face on social media, like, people wouldn't care, right? Because I don't even care about it. After this is posted up, it's like it's gone. It's just like I learned what I wanted to learn from it. Doesn't really matter. It's the thing. There's a very big difference between painting to learn something specific. This is doing something for to share. I share these stuff anyway, right? Because someone might find it useful. You might find it useful. I don't know how long I've been going. If you're still with me after 2 hours, then I'd imagine that you're at least interested in what's happening here. Right? You might inspire you to try it out. Like, why am I doing all this stuff? Just painting with grey blobs. Right, it's not visually going to look that impressive, I think, but it's all foundational to improving everything else that comes later. So it's like you're training your eye, you're training your hand motions, all that good stuff. Right, even when I start zooming out, it's like vaguely human shaped. You can imagine if I spend more than 20 seconds doing it, it's going to be a lot better, right? But it all stems from making these quick observations, so when the time comes, then I can start deciding to focus a bit more on what I'm doing, plan out a bit more. Like, it's just going to be exponentially better. We have a reflection shot here. They like to use mirrors or reflective surfaces like water and stuff when they're thinking about something. It's very consistent. I think Frodo is considering something here, sharing the burden or something, giving up the journey to share the ring or whatever. I don't know. Thinking about Gandalf, probably. Because I've just lost him. Bit of a change of pace here. This is the eye? No. Orc camp? Isengard? I can't remember exactly the details. Sorry to Die Hard fans. It's not coming to me. Just remember this imagery is. See, we've got that weird bluey, greeny tone again. Maybe it's orcs. Is that the orcs color? Are they called Urukai, maybe? It's been a long time, man. Fake fan. I think you start engaging with so many different medias, like things start bleeding together. Like, I can't remember the exact names of stuff anymore. I'm just getting old. Maybe. I think it genuinely is, like, you just start seeing so much content, so much, so many ideas and interpretations and everything, like, things start getting muddled together. Once upon a time I could name everything, tell you where it came from, what characters are involved. So, no, I have to start grouping them up now. My memory's starting to fade. It's getting a bit difficult. Just want to make a note here. You can see because of atmospheric particles, right? The light that travels towards us from a greater distance. Right, this is going to get a bit sciencey here. Right, it looks a bit blue, right? A bit faded, a bit lighter as you go out. You can create the illusion of depth by pushing blues in. I think that has to do with light drop off. Blue. If you imagine a rainbow, the blue rays of light travel further. They don't lose their. I don't want to spread misinformation. And pause for a second. I don't know if what I'm saying is 100% scientifically accurate. No, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know exactly why it's happening. But I think the thing to note is it's got to do with light rays, colours, the associated colours in the spectrum of light. They travel differently. I think that's the thing. I'll go back in the research about that a bit more before I talk more on the subject. But yeah, if you want to push something into the background, you make it lighter, make it more blue, and make this blue. You could do that to anything, really. You can do it on a character if you want. See that quite a lot in like RPGs and stuff. They'll have like a blue spray over. On like a back foot or something to like shove it further. And how much you do it is also a stylistic choice, right? It's like there's a lot of overlap on this stuff. Right, I'm gonna try and speed up again. Like, there's only a few more to go. I'm getting a bit hungry. So this shot, these scenes with Saruman are they're so complicated. There's so much light and detail to the building. Stresses me out a bit when I look at images like this. It's just so much to unpack. Like, it's like information overload, right? I have lights everywhere. Like, so, okay, tell you what, we're not gonna paint this one, right? I'm gonna break it down over here instead, because I think that'll be more useful to do. Switch to a pen, right? We have to consider the light sources, right? I can see this orangey light, right? That's affecting these guys. Is that the primary light source? Or is it a secondary? I don't know. It's supported by this hidden blue light, right? So let's call this one is the primary light source. And then on the opposite side, we have a hidden blue light, presumably coming from a window or something, hidden behind this pillar. And there's interest. That doing that sort of thing is interesting, right? Because you naturally want to see where the light is coming from. But you see a switch to a blue here. You can see that blue light now affects the forms on this side. I'm gonna get the names of the lights a bit wrong, I think, but generally speaking. All right. So this is your bounce light. Perhaps comes from this light bouncing. You know, boom, 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 hitting different surfaces and landing on the clothes like this. You know, it's all scattered around. We see the beams a bit straight. This is a very easy way to visualize what light is doing. Right. You can consider all the different light sources, right? We have also subtle light sources. Are these sconces, maybe lanterns? You know, these are affecting. Let's change it to yellow here. Oop. This is like a little candle or something, maybe inside an orb. You know, this is also a light source, but it's not as bright as this blue or this orange, which is coming in from up here somewhere. Right? But they're also not that strong. That's something, the intensity of a light source is something that is worth considering, right? Like this, you don't see this affecting the figure not nearly as much. I think it kind of combines a little bit, maybe here. It looks a bit green, right? But generally speaking, this isn't like, wow, it's super bright, like super important. You know, it's quite a dim light, but it is going to affect the objects around it locally. So it's coming from inside this orb-looking thing. So the light is going to bounce around a lot inside here, and then a little bit is going to escape. That's what we're seeing here. Right, but by the time it's escaping, you know, it's already lost a lot of the energy, so it's just kind of like gonna light up. Like if we look even closer, like there's a little bit along the edges of the lamppost itself, right? Like that's what you're looking at. You know, you can break it down, right? Everything, like, I think that's the main thing with a complicated picture is you can break it down, right, and then relayer it up. You know, we've covered a lot of this stuff already. We have the two figures in a composition, right? That symbolizes that they're talking. That's dealt with. We see all the lights affecting them. That's the lighting sources sorted. Let's look at the composition, right? Let's break it down again. In a rectangle, there's two figures. Then we have a hidden light source back here. You know, it's kind of like a rule of thirds type of situation, right? We place the figures in this rule of thirds, quadrant, nice one. In this section, right? We have leading lines coming down. We can call it a perspective shot because we're looking up at them. You know, everything's, you break it down, right? They have very neutral poses. Like if they were stood in like aggressive, like arms flailing or whatever, that would symbolize that perhaps they're fighting. But no, this guy's like they're looking at each other. It feels a bit threatening, right? Like this expression makes it feel like it's you know, this guy's done something wrong, right? He's kind of angry. You know, the way it's set up is exactly that. You know, it's like we're looking. The expression is what's important. We don't see this guy's face. oh, we see this guy's face. They could have swapped positions and it would tell a completely different story. Right? We have set design coming in from the buildings. It's very like Gothic cathedral-esque, like long columns, lots of windows, lots of details. We have like triangle composition with the placement of these supporting lights. It's very complicated, but it's all, you can break it all down. Recreating it is a whole nother matter. I think that's the thing that's been stressing me out lately, is there's so much to think about all the time. So it might take a while to build up the skill sets where I feel confident enough to put together a scene like this. But the theory stands, right? Individually, you can study each of these aspects in isolation and understand how they behave, right? Like how light hits skin and where you hit the shadow line here. You know, you might get some subsurface scattering along the edges here, right? That's at the minute level, right? Building a complicated image is just layering. It's just layering and planning. And that takes time. If you just kind of launched into it and just try to draw, like, we're gonna have all that, is like maybe they're talking and then we have the light. You know, it becomes really, really difficult to plan all of that stuff out. So you might see people do thumbnail sketches, or they'll do loose sketches and then they'll build on top. You know, like how you plan all of that out. Like that's just your style. Because at the end of the day, it's like you can depict all of these things, every single one, however you want. Like if you went over the top with try to find calligraphy brush maybe, right? You could do like a thick outline, you know. Just go over the top with this. I'll do it really quick, just to make a point of it, right? And then you just color it in with just grab these colors. You know, you could do something like this. That's a style, probably not a very appealing one, right? So maybe you would add in a bit of cell shading, a bit of blue, something a bit darker, you know. No, and then suddenly you have like a cartoon stylized version of it with thick outlines, and then you could animate it, right? Theoretically. Or you go the complete other direction, right? You don't do lines. You just paint. You just paint the same thing. You just paint everything in like semi-realism or whatever. I'm just doing whatever here. Inadvertently ended up with the same thing because I've forgotten I'm still on the on the calligraphy brush. Look, anyway, so we have like soft shading only. I don't know, maybe something like this. Yeah. That's what style is, right? It's just like you're depicting the same things. You've broken down everything in the same way. It's just choosing how you want to depict it. That's what style is. But you can't do that until you kind of understand the way it's all set up. That's why it takes so long, right? Each one of these elements takes time to see and to how it interacts, and I didn't finish that train of thought. Excuse me, I'm so. Oh, hope that made sense. At the very least, it's like each individual element takes time to understand how it behaves, but it's consistent across every medium. And I think it becomes a lot easier to like make whatever you want once you start seeing those patterns. And then all of a sudden it's just like you can kind of depict all this stuff however you want. It's like I've been doing it as blobs of color with this big big brushes. It's the statues. Just because I'm looking at composition, right? But then you can tweak your tools to fit whatever needs you want. If you wanted to focus more on sketching or whatever, you can just do that. You're doing the same thing, but instead you're just using a different tool. But the functional things that you're looking for visually are still the same. I'm just gonna quickly sketch it out here. Some texture work, right? Like I'm going a bit fast for this. So I don't do it this way, right? Because it's like a bit awkward to try and block out colors. Like all my hatched shading and stuff. It's gonna take a while to build up into something that doesn't leak light like this, right? Like if I zoom all the way in, you'll see. When you leave gaps like this, it's the equivalent of lighting up a value. So this area, which is black, actually you'd want to like completely block in. But using this thin pencil that I like drawing with, it you can see me scratching with it now. It's gonna take forever to do it, right? Like to even get it remotely close to black. And like every time I do one of these strokes, there's a chance of screwing it up. Because there's no longer matching the form or whatever have you. Like certain things are just easier to do with different tools. And this is all digital, but the same rules apply to when you're working in a traditional media. If you wanted to do this sort of value study, you could do it with charcoal. Maybe it would be quite easy, relatively speaking. Then if you were drawing with a pencil, it's the same logic, right? Which is why you kind of want to try different things. You get a feel for it because they will teach different ways of approaching it. The different tools kind of require different mindsets to work with, right? Like if you're mixing colors with paint or something, doing watercolors, they behave differently. So you're going to approach the things that you're doing in a slightly different way every time. But the underlying things that you're trying to do don't change, right? That's why it's like even if you've never done the watercolor before or anything like that, like once you get over that initial like new medium like hesitation, like confusion, which are related to working with the tools themselves, while you're working out what a program can do. Once you get over that initial shock, you can probably get a fairly competent like image relative to like how little like you've worked with in that thing before, right? Like that's where the cross skilling works. You can see it happening. Like I think I drew on a 3ds the other day. I did a value study on Starry Night, as everyone does, right? I was just like lost in thought one day. I was just like, I wonder if I can do this. It's like I've never drawn in this notes app before, and it still turned out okay. Because it's like functionally you're trying to do the same thing as what I'm doing here. And you're just working with the medium, right? So they have technically three colors and an eraser, right? and it's like, okay, how do I work with this? How do I represent values like that? How do I break it down? Right? You're thinking about the same things in a limited format. It's the same. It's the same process. Once you know what you're trying to depict, how you do it doesn't really matter at that point. Like how you're doing it affects what it looks like at the end, and like that's kind of it. you can do a lot. You see, once you get a hang of values in particular, I think images start becoming a lot more coherent. Like even when it's kind of duff, whatever, like you can kind of make it look like a fake person in a matter of seconds. You can convey the idea of what it is you're trying to do very quickly, and that comes from understanding values. That's why I'm doing all this. So better you can break down images like this, the easier it is to construct it later, right? Because you've seen the patterns, you know layouts, you understand how light and materials interact and everything. Like, yeah, at this stage it probably doesn't look like Sam here, but you can see it's like a person falling, even when you zoom out. Like, there's no detail on it. It's just literally a grey blob, right? If I come back in, like what is that, right? Well, once you start zooming out, you can see how it starts forming. Building a coherent and interesting, let's quote unquote good, right? Like good image that holds up when you zoom all the way in. Like, that's just time and sitting with an image long enough for you to add enough detail to make it interesting. To be honest, I want to get a gradient here. See a weird shot. Is this a hand? Does Frodo reach down to like grab him? Is that what happens? Like this is the like brother type situation. I don't know. I think there's just a lot of story that can be told without actually depicting it. Like I've not seen this film in years, but I can vaguely tell you probably what's going on around this time. But that's only coming from looking at these images in this way. I don't remember like the details. It doesn't look like a hand, and I'm not. Whatever. I don't want to draw it. I don't want to draw it. I need food. I'm just gonna quickly finish up these two. Right, it's the end of their journey. End of my journey for today. Oh my gosh, I've talked about it a lot. I wonder if it was interesting. I don't know. Like, this is like stuff I've been thinking about, talking about a lot lately. This is what I've been doing. I've tried to enunciate everything that I've been doing in a more coherent way, and I hope that has come across. And if it was useful, interesting, like, then I'm glad. It's like I'm just sharing what I'm doing, what I'm up to. Because I don't think individually any of this stuff is that impressive, perhaps. It's just like a couple of grey blobs, realistically speaking. But someone might find it helpful to see at one point. This is the sort of stuff that I was doing, at this stage. Who knows? Maybe you feel like you want to try doing this, like, as well. This is not how I started, right? Like, I think tell you with full confidence that the first images I did took way longer were not as accurate. It's kind of all over the place, and I didn't really understand what I was doing.
They're literally all posted on my blog. If you look for film stills, value studies, they'll probably turn up. Anyway, I'm exhausted. How long was that? Not even 3 hours. Nice, even faster than the Parasite study. So, good time. Maybe, yeah, probably could have gone faster, but I did meander and talk about a lot of other stuff, which I thought was relevant and interesting to discuss. So, I'm not too worried. Thanks for dropping by. If you stayed, let me know if you do this sort of thing. If you found it interesting or what have you. I'm documenting everything that I'm working on for my art stuff on my Tumblr blog. I post a lot of studies and practice pieces and everything. It's like kind of trying everything at the moment. They don't really have a coherent, common thread, which is not how a lot of people post on social media. I'm not worried, right? Like if you stumbled upon this video, then I assume you understand why I'm doing it, and yeah, I might find it interesting. Anyway, I got big projects lined up, but I gotta keep practicing all these different skills, and hopefully this was interesting. I think I learned a lot. I've been talking so much that haven't really been paying attention to what I've been absorbing, to be honest. So I'm gonna watch it back as soon as I can, and look over some of these images, see what came up. All right, take care. Good luck with your art journeys, and see you again in the next one. Bye bye.